Before anything else, let's get this out of the way. There will be no direct comparison between this game and any of the games made by ye ol' Hoyoverse. Let's keep the comments civil. The gacha gaming space has been a little saturated over the past few years, but there have been some standouts in the genre, one of which is Wuthering Waves, a game that had people touting as the Genshin killer around the window of its reveal. And since Genshin Impact was the massive success it was around that time, other game devs also wanted in on the cake Hoyo was eating. Personally, I'd heard about the game and had relegated it to something I'd check out once it launched, and didn't really think about it until the day that it dropped. I installed it on day 1, and played a decent bit into version 1.2, liked what I'd played, but not enough to come back to it on a consistent basis. So I took a few months break to only come back sporadically for a few characters. After a bit of convincing from a friend, I decided to give it another shot in 2.2, and I've been on it since. Now, we're at the tail end of 2025, and the game's first year and a half. So how good is it really? Wuthering Waves is an open-world action RPG developed by Kuro Games, who had also worked on Punishing Grey Raven. Kuro had set out to create Wuthering Waves with a concept inspired by Kojima Productions' Death Stranding, to create a post-apocalyptic world where players can experience the fusion of new and old civilizations. Revealed in March of 2022, and soon followed by a trailer showcasing the game's direction, almost immediately had people excited for it. From there, they would frequently upload videos to their YouTube channel to showcase the game, as well as sharing some developer insights in regards to how it was being made. Nearing the end of 2023, they had also started posting videos on specific characters that would be in the game on release, which was slated to be on May 22nd, 2024. Now, the game did have 2 closed beta tests leading up to the release, wherein Kuro had decided to change the story of the game due to beta testers finding it uncomfortable that characters were too overly suspicious of the player. Something to think about. Getting back to it, prior to the release, the game garnered 30 million pre-registrations, and those directly converting into installations, to top the download charts in over 100 regions in the first month of the release. So how was the launch of the game? Absolutely horrendous. Wuthering Waves launched with 30 million downloads and a whole slew of bugs and quality control problems in its first month. These bugs range from login timeouts, random crashing, in-game assets not loading properly, device compatibility issues, hanging on loading screens. Man, this is a long laundry list. Holy shit! People were thinking that this was the end for the game, and I wouldn't blame them. I don't know about the rest of you, but the one recurring bug I ran into was the game not properly saving my login details. So I had to exit the game by ending the task instead of, you know, clicking exit game. The point is, the game felt like it was put together with shoestrings and hope when it launched. Just exploded into pieces if you looked at it funny. Fortunately enough, before the game was considered a complete failure by players, Kuro Games was quick to get off their asses and worked on fixing the innumerable amount of problems with the game immediately and gave out appropriate compensation for it. Of course though, the damage had already been done, and the crowd of vocal minorities had ammo on the game. All of this isn't even going over the quality of the story, of which I'll get into later. For as promising as a game might seem, you might just ruin whatever goodwill you ever had if the launch just goes horribly. And there's just issues galore! But what happens next might shock you. They took community feedback and actually tried to make things right by their player base. From there, the issues just got ironed out and the game was starting to look competent, like it had a real chance of competing in the mobile game market. Alright, we've been going over the stuff surrounding the game a whole lot, but let's get into the game now, shall we? And what better place to start than the story? I'm gonna be spoiling this thing rotten, so here we go!
6 hours later.
Okay! Wow, that took a lot out of me. Yeah, on second thought, let's not do that. There's plenty of videos out there that are better for that sort of thing, so I'll just give my thoughts on it instead. The game starts off in Huanglong as soon as you make an account, and like a lot of beginnings in these types of games, overload you with information about the world setting. Seeing as how it is the introduction, doing that can either put you off of the game or get you super hooked, depending on how you like that sort of thing. Getting into the actual story premise, I'm sure you've heard this take before, but I'm gonna echo the opinion.
Don't worry, I don't plan to make you hate me just yet. She is safe now.
Huanglong is fucking rough, man. Very inconsistent pacing, a shit ton of downtime, not being concise, and flat out bad voice direction. At least in the English dub, because that's mainly what I play the game in. I mean, if you want examples, just listen to any of Scar or Yang Yang's lines.
Our frontline troops would face attacks from both sides. Have you thought about the consequences?
No need to be so on edge. By now, you should have realized I'm just one of the onlookers.
It was almost like hearing someone speak English for the first time. Voice acting aside, you can really say that the 1.0 story just lacks focus. The game tries to introduce a lot of things that, while they are relevant, don't add much to what you're doing at the moment. Something great that the story will do later on is Rover being more integrated into the world, and there are mentions of the impact they have. But for most of the 1.0 story, they're put into the spectator's seat while the nation deals with their crisis. Characters are introduced left and right, I guess to give you some sort of connection because some of them are playable, but the problem is that they're not given a reason to be there when they do show up. Some of them, like Calcharo, just don't show up at all, so when and if you pull the guy, you have no clue who the fuck he is. On the opposite end of that, you got characters popping in like cameos for no reason at all, just to say they showed up. Starting with version 1.1, the story quality in this game can actually blow your socks off. Why? Because there's a focus on the story they want to tell, with fewer distractions in the way. Since they got most of the introductions to the world out of the way, they can get more detailed on some of the major characters in the plot. The effort they put into the presentation aspect of storytelling really starts to be apparent with this quest because holy fuck, these cutscenes are pretty. Not only that, but the lead up into conclusion has been improved. You've got the intro, problem, and solution all right there. The part of Rover being a big deal is brought up again, with a figure as big as the Sentinel Jinzhou saying that Rover used to be their previous master, one known as Lord or Lady Arbiter, depending on which Rover you picked. With that, the Huanglong arc wraps up. Going into version 1.3, we got more on the Black Shores and their role in the world. How what's essentially a supercomputer running simulations to learn more about the Laments gets malware and people have to fix it. By now, Kuro had actually gotten great with storytelling. This was raising all the stakes, and what's more is that you could feel that happening. Or I did at least. Once again, there was focus, and this time it was on Rover themselves, where you get more details about their previous incarnations from the Shorekeeper, as they've been watching over Rover throughout the world's history and, after all these events, gains emotions. We got great story beats, background lore, and most importantly of all with this one, the canonical wife.
Thank you, my star.
I feel like after version 2, the scope increased tenfold. More characters, more lore, more music, more cutscenes, bigger landscapes, the sheer magnitude of the events unfolding around you. All of what was good in Huanglong, just better. I did enjoy Cardathia's arc a lot, and the whole concept behind the Threnodian in the nation, Leviathan, being a sort of antichrist because with Renacita having clashes between those of different faiths, it just fits so damn well. Great NPCs, compelling character-driven narratives, animation that can rival movies, man! To sum it up, yeah. They got a handle on writing good stuff, and if we keep going in this direction for La Hairoi, this story is going to be something to continue looking out for. Hi, me from the future here, because I almost just passed over one of the biggest factors of the game's story. Wuwa has a skip button for most, if not all of its cutscenes. You can look at this from the angle of the devs not having confidence in their own story, but I see this from another angle. The fact that there's been a skip button for the story since the very beginning means that it's intrinsically tied to the game at this point. It's almost as if Kuro has taken it as a challenge for themselves. We'll give you the option to skip, but we're gonna try our damnedest to make sure you won't want to. The skip button is there to hold them accountable for making a good story. At least, this is a better approach than not having a skip button at all and forcing your players to sit through some boring nonsense with some characters you don't even care about. Alright, back to the past me. The story has gotten great and all, but Wuthering Waves is more than just a movie. It's a game, so we should probably give that some spotlight, huh? Wuwa is, well, an open-world action RPG, and this game's aesthetic to me is very similar to that of the areas in Xenoblade Chronicles, and being very clear in the fact that it's a post-apocalyptic setting. While several areas are developed, others contrast that in how fucked the world's gotten after the Lament, for lack of a better descriptor. Not only that, but the game has a lot of set pieces to make those areas memorable, just because, like, fuck, look at this! This shit is pretty! You can customize the look of the game according to your tastes too. Crank the saturation, brightness, contrast, white balance, however the hell you want. Littered in these landscapes are a ton of collectibles you can grab to work towards map completion, or materials you can use to upgrade the playable resonators. Chests can be laid out and about, or have conditions to unlock them, such as clearing out a group of enemies or solving puzzles, ranging from getting a board to match a specific color, filling in the missing spot of an ice structure, memorizing a path, all the way to this godforsaken minigame with the chess pieces. No, seriously, fuck this guy. You can also find some of these Dream Patrol challenges around Resonators that have you meet some specific requirements to get title heritages, facilitating at least a bit more thought than just keyboard smash. The world map can display points of interest and pinpoints the ones nearest to your position, lets you drop your own pins, as well as there being a completion bar at the top for each area so you can track your progress. After reaching certain exploration checkpoints, which is to say every 25% per area, the game also rewards you with extra goodies, those being echoes, level up materials, flight stamina, and standard banner pulls. Wait, flight stamina? Fuck yeah, we got flying in this game! After unlocking and doing a bit of the main quest in Resonators, you're given the flight gadget. This is crazy convenient for getting around and just getting to see the full sights of the game. This thing lets you go up and you can boost during flight to go faster if you want. For a while, this feature was exclusive to Resonators, but Kuro had updated it to work in Huanglong and the Black Shores. Damn great addition too, with how vertical a lot of the structures were. That's not all. These types of games will have you climbing a bunch of walls, but this game gives you the ability to wall run, to make that faster too. Okay, sometimes it gets a bit jank. Stop that. But most of the time, it's great and saves so much time. You get a grapple hook that not only gives you cool transitions during automated sections, but one that you can use to get just that little bit of extra height for when a regular jump can't make it. You have a little air dash that you can use to keep the pace going as you're running. And biggest of all to me, when you're not in combat, sprinting in the overworld doesn't cost stamina. There's even a setting you can toggle to make your character automatically sprint after a few seconds of the default jogging speed. The movement options in this game are just great and make exploration a thing you actually want to do. Now let's get into the combat of Wuthering Waves. On a global level, every character has a basic attack, heavy attack, dodge counter, mid-air attack, resonance skill, resonance liberation, which is basically your ultimate, intro skill, and outro skill. Depending on the character, a couple of those can get more use or no use at all. But it is because of the sheer number of abilities there are that Kuro can get creative with how they design movesets for Resonators. There is also the Forte circuit bar that unlocks new variations of one of those attacks that plays into the Resonator's intended role and mechanics, though you are more than welcome to ignore those intentions, if you so wish. With a lot of characters, their Forte bar also has a unique look to it, designed specifically so you as the player know when their mechanic is available. Next to the Forte bar is your Concerto energy that gives you access to intro and outro skills. These are more for dealing damage to enemies on entry or exit, casting a buff, or in rare cases, being the trigger for something that affects the battlefield. As an example, since Carlotta is a glacial resonator that primarily uses resonance skill damage, Zhezha is the perfect companion to her as she buffs both of those damage types on her outro skill. Of course not the only option, but it can help you decide on how you want to play the game if you like it straight and easy. For those that like it a bit more freestyle, there is certainly room for that route too. The easy road is there, but that doesn't mean you have to take it. Combat in Wuwa can be whatever the hell you want. You want a very basic structure that uses intro-outros? Use some of these. You want to mash characters together and see how they do? You can do that and make it work if you understand the game to that level. Speaking of understanding the game, a lot of enemies use attacks that have a double ring show up in front of them. Time your next hit with the wings overlapping and you trigger a parry, canceling their attack and in some cases knocking them back and stunning them. This has been a smaller factor in more recent updates, and learning the timing on this takes a bit of getting used to. But when you do hit it, the serotonin comes flooding. Enemies also have a vibration strength meter beneath their health bars sometimes that acts like a stun timer. Every time you hit an enemy, their vibration strength gets weaker. Intro skills, dodge counters, and parries are more effective at this. When it's depleted, the enemy goes into a stun state where they're completely vulnerable for the allotted time. Again, it's small, but it basically gives you another Achilles heel you can shoot at to have different combat scenarios. Can you tell that I really like the combat in this game? The other main component of combat is gearing your Resonators to be stronger. In this game, there are 5 ways to upgrade your characters. Their Resonator level, which increases their base stats, their equipped weapon, forte levels, echoes, and lastly, obtaining sequence nodes in their resonance chain. I'll get into sequence nodes later on, but for now, let's focus on the first 4. Generally speaking, you should prioritize leveling your Resonators, weapons, and fortes before anything else because those are guaranteed improvements. The weapons have varying effects that may play better into a Resonator's strengths, and of course, leveling them is always good. Fortes are your ability levels. Again, the higher the level, the better it is. Echoes can yield a bigger improvement, but are always a shot in the dark because they're luck-based. Echoes are obtained through claiming the bounties from tacit fields, and sometimes through defeating overworld enemies and bosses. Echoes are given a main stat and up to 5 substats, 1 per 5 levels on that specific echo. This is where your primary time sink is going to be if you want to take on the endgame content. There's a system in the game that lets you recycle your echoes to basically get a fresh batch of them if you don't like what you have. There is also another feature that lets you switch out the main stat of an unleveled echo to one of your choosing using a modifier as a way to not go insane looking for the specific one that you want. To upgrade echoes, you need sealed tubes or other leveled echoes. And to actually get the substats, you need tuners, 10 per substat. This is probably the biggest hurdle in terms of upgrading characters for me, because do you fucking see how many tuners I have? I swear there will be some days or weeks you won't get a good echo just because of the way the wind blows. I digress, because hey, even through that, getting a Resonator up and running won't take all that long on average. It doesn't really cost you that many materials either, ignoring the potential number of echoes you might have to upgrade to be satisfied with their builds. So why would you even do that in the first place? Well, suppose that you actually like the game past the exploration and find the combat a bit too easy. Wuwa has 3 main ways to humble you. Clearing the Tower of Adversity, aka TOA, should be your main goal if you want to go down this route. The TOA is a set of challenges that reward you based on your rank, which is how fast you clear the challenges. Player skill and Resonator builds are both put to the test here. There are typically theme-related buffs that match the Resonators currently on the banners for that specific cycle, but they're not end-all be-all buffs. You can still play around them assuming you have a diverse pool of Resonators. The one thing stopping you from using only one Resonator to clear everything in the TOA is Vigor. Vigor is the cost of using a specific Resonator. See, the higher the difficulty of the challenge in TOA, the more Vigor you consume on that specific Resonator, and in turn, the less you get to use them. Naturally, this means you need to have more Resonators, which leads you back into the building process. Kuro had also made a change to the Hazard Tower to make it 4 levels instead of the 2 it used to be. The catch with this system is that if you're confident enough to clear some levels, you don't need to bring in full teams every time, so you can run a level with just 1 Resonator if you wanted to, and save your stronger Resonators for the harder levels. I really like this design. Some of the levels in the tower are actually piss easy, so I don't feel like bringing in an entire team just to deal with a few weak mobs. And just like that, I don't have to, because I'd rather save my heavy hitters for some of the harder challenges. The TOA is mostly a damage check, but not a super inflated one. Most, if not every Resonator in the game has ways to clear it without having overly invested builds, and it still provides enough of a goal to work towards. The second endgame goal to work towards are the tactical holograms. These challenges are boss fights, but on steroids. They hit harder, take way more of a beating than they usually would, and have new mechanics to make them a harder fight. There is a timer in every level, but to be honest, it doesn't matter a whole lot because you either already beat it by then, or you're too busy dying to notice. I've gotta say, these are no joke. Well, I say that, but then again, some dungeon player is gonna come along and make it look like a cakewalk. The last of the main endgame modes is Whimpering Wastes, aka Wiwa. Yeah, great name, huh? Wiwa is a test of how many waves of enemies you can take out before the timer runs out. I mean, that's kind of the gist of it. This is what makes up your points, which you get rewards for after they're tallied up. What this really means is that Resonators that work amazingly on a single target suddenly become subpar here. What you're looking for here is less of one big hit, and more like a lot of decently sizable hits. Resonators that require a status on the enemy to do their damage, I'm looking at you, Phoebe, just aren't cut out for this mode. Or at the very least, you're gonna be miserable trying to play them. Again, there comes a point where if you're good enough, I'm not, you can use whoever the hell you want. But what this also means is that some Resonators that aren't as good for TOA's damage check, but have alternative utilities, are really good for Wiwa. Some like Yang Yang or Rochia really come into their own here with their abilities to group enemies. Or, you know, Furlova can just be good at everything. Just to lightly touch on it a bit, the game's user interface is pretty good. It's nice that characters' abilities light up when they're available. Same with the character icons with their intro skills. To go over the menus, everything is laid out pretty clear and concise so you know where everything is. To top it off, Kuro recently put in an exit to overworld button that closes all your menus and brings you right back to the overworld. My only real nitpick with the UI is the Echo menu. It's needlessly convoluted to get to the merge and modify menus from the databank. The menu layers. The menu layers! It's hard to believe that throughout all of that, I've barely talked about the characters at all, but they're a core part of the game and whether you'll want to get them or not, so let's get into it. The character designs in this game are great. Everyone has traits that separate them from the crowd. Hell, even some of the NPCs stand out. Certainly for some of the characters, the designs can be a bit plain. Still distinct enough, but plain. Although, just because the game's set in a post-apocalyptic world doesn't mean that we can only get black and white or muted hues, because some vibrancy would be nice. I'd even say it took Kuro until version 2.0 to start swatching colors and giving characters more intricate details. Not that what we got before then is any worse for it, but there was definitely a shift after we got to Resonators. This is especially noticeable in characters like Carlotta, Brent, Rochia, just to name a few. Personally, I'd say those are some of my favorites, along with Zani for the simplicity and sheer class of her outfit, and Chakona because she's just bursting with color. Another thing I really like is characters not having to adhere to the color schemes of their respective attributes. Some examples of this are Brent being Fusion, Yuno being Arrow, and Augusta being Electro was the most baffling to me. But yeah, this is great! I'm not gonna get into other character traits. Okay, fine. Obligatory mention. This is a bit much. I'm here for it, Kuro. But Jesus Christ! Let's just say someone on the dev team was single-handedly working on the game, if you know what I mean. Okay, one last thing before we dive into the elephant in the room that's been sitting there since the start of the video. One of the biggest factors in liking a game for me is the music. You know, ambience, tension, levity, all of that. It's all subjective and very dependent on your taste, but fuck, this game's soundtrack is so great. You'd have been listening to it for the entire video so far, and there's some serious variety with some great stuff in here. In terms of the game's advertising or colloquial drip marketing, there's some fantastic quality with that too. Every soon-to-be released character gets a trailer or Resonator showcase that's exactly what the name says it is. Kuro's made a way to show off their characters' flair in combat, as well as a bit of their personalities. I've only watched a few of these, so maybe look out for a video or stream where I react to them all if you're interested. But from the few that I have seen, these really do feel like whoever worked on them put immense effort into making them look this fucking amazing. Not only just to incentivize spending money on the game for them, well, there's that too of course, but also because they themselves love the game. Now, this might be a hot take, but I think games are better when the devs care about making a good product. I know, this is probably an opinion worth pulling out the pitchforks for, but I need to say it. Alright. It's time for the humongous elephant in the room. So damn big it barely fits. So, while there isn't an admission price to get into the game, they gotta make their money somehow. Convene is the gacha system within the game. Through these in-game currencies that you can also convert from astrites or lunites that you can buy with real money, you can obtain resonators and therefore their sequence nodes on their resonance chain for every duplicate past the first instance, or weapons. The game splits up some of these categorically, colloquially known as banners. Standard resonator and weapon, as well as featured resonator and weapon. Every resonator in the game comes in rarities of 4 or 5 stars. Weapons come in 3, 4, or 5 star flavors. For every individual convene, or pull as I'll be calling them, you have a 93.2% chance of obtaining a 3-star weapon, 6% for a 4-star resonator or weapon, and depending on which banner type you pull on, 0.8% for 5-star characters or weapons. You are at bare minimum guaranteed a 4-star item per every 10 pulls and a 5-star per every 80, which I'm gonna call the pity count. But this doesn't rule out the possibility of getting multiple items of those rarities at a lower number of pulls. I should also mention there is a sort of grace system in play. For every resonator banner, there are 4 rate-up resonators, a 5-star accompanied by 3 4-stars. Every time you obtain a 4-star or 5-star item, there is a 50-50 shot of it being a rate-up or a standard pull item. If you get one of these standard pull items, the next one is guaranteed to be the rate-up item. What this actually means is that while you're on your way to the guaranteed 5-star item, you could lose a coin flip and just not get the rate-up resonator on the banner. While this isn't the biggest of deals to some, if you're the type that really wants the Resonator on the banner, you have to climb the pity count again or hope you can get a gold early with that horrendous 0.8% chance. Thank fucking god the 5-star 50-50 thing doesn't exist on the weapon banners. What you see is what you get when you get a 5-star. I wish this was the norm if devs were going to be insistent on gachas, but that's not a topic for this video. Whenever you pull on a banner, regardless of what it is, you also get varying amounts of corals. Those corals can be spent at another shop in the menu to get a wide variety of items, even being able to buy up to 2 sequence nodes per character with enough of them. So, while the gacha system isn't completely ideal, there are some good things to take away from it. With enough pulls, you can buy a few sequence nodes with the corals you accumulate instead of having to pull for more copies of your desired resonator. Look, I'm not gonna say I like the gacha as a part of the game, because really every game would be better off without it, but if you had to design one that benefits both the devs and the players, this isn't overly offensive. I should mention that you don't need to spend money on the game. You can still clear content in the current state of the game without that many premium items. If you want to spend, well, no, I'm not your parent, so do whatever the hell you want. Other forms of monetization the game has are the Pioneer podcast and Lunite subscription. The Pioneer podcast essentially being the battle pass of the game. Through completing missions, you gain experience to level it. There's free rewards and premium rewards you can claim for every level that range from shell credits, in-game money, experience materials, tuners, and exclusive to the premium rewards, a weapon of your choosing. There's also the Premium Pro Max podcast you can buy that gives you a jump start in leveling progress and exclusive backgrounds for your in-game profile. The Lunite subscription is probably the highest value for its price should you go for it. It gives you an upfront 300 Lunites and 2,700 Astrites spread across the next 30 days. The last type of monetization is cosmetics. These are exactly as they sound, purely for looks and nothing more. Albeit a bit pricey, but if you feel it's worth the price for your favorite characters, knock yourselves out. Let's cap off this video. Is Wuthering Waves worth playing? Well, if it wasn't clear by now, that's a resounding yes from me. This game does have its issues still, including but not limited to some cutscenes, especially from the Renacita finale quest, felt a bit rushed or undercooked. I don't know what the fuck is happening, but Honami is making my PC scream in agony. Gacha is a thing, and Frolova was the single biggest oops I think they ever made with the playable cast because of how overwhelmingly powerful she is. That's all I can really think of at the top of my head right now. Kuro's got a really good game in Wuthering Waves, if things continue in this direction, but solid enough to recommend that you get into it if you're interested. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you back for another upload. See ya.